there, so it's back on the Good Enough's Mum page, and the focus today is the World Father's Mental Health Day, which is today. Now this has been running since 2016, so it's quite new, and I think it's really interesting to look at what it's all about, because I think it's helpful. It's sort of gathering understanding of what's happening to fathers, and in particular it's looking at fathers when their babies are born and in that postpartum period, and it's actually recognising that men can suffer from postnatal depression as well as women. And that is quite challenging to some people who believe that postnatal depression is actually rooted in hormones. And so if you believe that, it's difficult to believe that fathers could suffer from postnatal depression. But honestly, there's lots of different reasons for postnatal depression, and hormones is only one of them. And I think it's really interesting to recognise that, particularly for men, this can be quite a difficult thing to acknowledge and for it to be recognised. And so Father's Mental Health Day is really important because it's raising the profile of what some men are going through. And I think what can happen is that a baby being born is obviously a huge change for everyone concerned, especially for the mum. And it's often expected that the dad will be able to support her and be there for her. And of course, that's what many fathers want to be able to do. But I think what's largely unrecognised is the role of birth trauma and how that can affect dads. And when I used to work with couples who are expecting babies, sometimes after the birth, I'd listen to the dad speaking, and they'd found the birth, especially if their wife had been through a traumatic birth, it was really difficult for them to witness. And often for the mum, she could be not really knowing to a huge extent what was going on. And for the dad, it was really, really difficult because he was really aware of what was happening. And so I think it's really important that we begin to talk about the effect on men of difficult births and the effect on men of the postnatal period, and how for them it can be a difficult readjustment as well, especially if their partner is struggling or has had a very difficult birth. I think the responsibility that men feel for their growing family can also be a factor in this. And last but not least, I think it's really important to recognise our expectations of men. And I think it's an unspoken norm in society that we expect our men to be strong. And it's sometimes very, very difficult for men to be able to admit that they're not feeling very strong and that they're struggling. And so it's really important for those of us who are surrounding new families to actually ask men how they are too, and what's happening with them and how they're coping, as well as obviously giving our support to mums. And I think it's really, really important to acknowledge the fact that we often expect our menfolk to be strong. And what does that do to them, and how does that affect them? And I think there's a really, really important conversation to be had about our expectations of men in society today. And we need to allow our men to admit the times when they are finding things difficult. Now, there's a whole lot of support and resources for men online in terms of the father's postpartum health, mental health. And I will be posting some stuff about that. But what I'd ask you to do is just consider the expectations that perhaps you have of the men around you, and how much room there is for you to allow them perhaps not to be as strong as you need them to be. And I will be blogging about this subject, so do keep an eye out for my blog, which will be coming out this week. And take care of yourself. Please like and share this video if you think it might be helpful. Bye!